Hi, my name is Valentina, and today I would like to talk about transgressive art, Avant-Garde. I would like to begin with a famous French author Camus quote: "If the words were clear, art would not exist." Art is a level of expression beyond the scope of a language. So where does transgressive stem from? Well, Dada and Avant-Garde can be attributed for our contemporary understanding of transgressions and its application in current art practices. Transgressive art is always shocking, even repulsive. It often includes graphic images, often connected with anatomy, for instance, sexual acts and bodily fluids. These images may contain blood, open wounds, raw animal meat, or images of various body parts. Transgressive art has existed as long as mankind, and some of the earliest examples are the prehistoric cave paintings by Lascaux. These paintings were mostly of animal representation. However, there is only one human figure depicted in the cave, which is a bird-headed man with an erect phallus. Archaeologists believe that the cave was used over a long period of time as a center for hunting and religious rituals. So both magic and art are associated with viewing the world in a different way. The Lascaux grotto was opened to the public in 1948, but it was closed in 1963 due to artificial light had faded the vivid colors of the paintings and caused algae to grow over some of them. However, a replica of the Lascaux cave was opened nearby in 1983, and it received tens of thousands of visitors annually up until this day. So, it is with the modernization process and the rise of Bohemian Avant-Garde, transgression became a central dynamic within an art. And today I would like to focus on Avant-Garde and share some of the most important movements. So I'd like to begin by trying to identify what is Avant-Garde and where does it come from. So originally, Avant-Garde was a French military term for what would be called in English the vanguard of an army, which refers to something visionary and ahead of its time. However, its first application to art precedes by some decades the emergence of any distinctly avant-garde art movements, and it first appeared with reference to art in France in the first half of the 19th century and is usually credited to the influential thinker Henry de Saint-Simon, one of the forerunners of the socialism. He believed in the social power of the arts and saw artists alongside scientists and industrialists as the leaders of a new society. And in 1825, he wrote in his opinions book, "It is we artists who will serve you as avant-garde. The power of the artist is in fact most immediate and most rapid. When we wish to spread ideas among men, we inscribe them on marble or on canvas. What a magnificent destiny for the arts is that of exercising a positive power over society, a true priestly function, and of marching forcefully in vanguard of all intellectual faculties." Avant-garde art can be said to have begun in 1850s with the realism of Gustave Courbet, who was strongly influenced by early socialist ideas. This was followed by a successive movement of modern art. From there, avant-garde was a term regularly applied to artists, with many citing the realism of Gustave Courbet as a starting point. Although the term avant-garde was originally applied to innovative approaches to art, making it in the 19th and the early 20th centuries, It is applicable to all art that pushes the boundaries of ideas and creativity, and is still used today to describe art that is radical or reflects originality of vision. The notion of avant-garde preserves the idea that art should be judged primarily on the quality and originality of the artist's vision and ideas. Furthermore, avant-garde could be said to be acting as an aggressor towards the status quo and the ways it has sought to subvert cultural norms through a diverse range of creative engagement and expression. So, avant-garde could be said to be aggressive, and as Camus said, no work without an aggressive character can be a masterpiece. So because of its radical nature and the fact that it challenges existing ideas, processes, and forms, avant-garde artists and artwork often go hand in hand with controversy. Even though it is quite an exhausting list of avant-garde movements. But I will try and share some of the most memorable modern movements in Western history that are considered avant-garde for breaking the boundaries. So the realism of Gustave Courbet and his associates is often cited as the first avant-garde art movement. A particular importance of Courbet's monumental canvas, which is the Stonebreakers, which long served as a standard for political and avant-gardism. Painted the year following both the failed revolutions of 1848 and the publication of Marx and Engels, the Communist Manifesto, it seemed to distill the ideas of the era and his disappointments, emphasizing the harsh realities of working class life. Critics of the time celebrated his work in the very process of calling for democratic reform, noting that art changes only through strong convictions strong enough to change society at the same time. So another avant-garde art movement, which is considered most influential and famous, is Impressionism. It was the first avant-garde art movement, and in the early 1860s, the Impressionists were a group of artists who began mounting their own exhibitions in the intentional defiance of the official salon. They called themselves the Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, and Engravers. The group held their first exhibition in 1874. They have developed a radical technique involving loose and spontaneous brushwork, painting outside to capture the optical effects of light, and favoring subjects from everyday reality over history and mythology. The Impressionists were avant-garde in both technique and the subject matter. We may look at the painting and think that it's not very transgressive at the moment, but in 1860s, this was considered to be extremely transgressive. Another avant-garde art movement, which could be called Dada or Dadaism, which was formed in Switzerland during the World War I, and is revolutionary for its focus on making work that wasn't necessarily aesthetically pleasing. Its purpose instead was to question the capitalist society and its values. Dada also made use of ready-mades, everyday objects appropriated as pieces of art, as a way to question the burghers' sensibilities and the role of the artist in the creativity. Dada had profound influence on other avant-garde movements that followed, like Cubism, Fluxus, and it also helped the birth of Surrealism. Surrealism is a highly experimental based on principles of the subconscious mind, sometimes could be referred to as automatism. This break from reality gave surrealists complete creative freedom, as they were no longer guided by academic principles. The dreamlike scenery of their art combines realistic renderings of fantastical subject matter. Surrealists were also well known for dabbling in many forms of art, from painting and sculpture to photography and film. So lastly, I would like to talk about Cubism, which is one of the most well-known avant-garde movements. Founders such as Pablo Picasso and George Braque played with all the traditional academic rules of Western art and transformed them into new, unexpected method for creating art. Figures were broken into geometric shapes, colors were brightened and simplified. In fact, looking at the timeline of art history, Western visual culture can be split clearly into two pieces, before and after Cubism.